Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to be back with a guest of ours. She's our first second time reoccurring guest ever. So this is kind of a big milestone for us. Let's get right into it. First and foremost, let me bring on my co-host and partner, Dr. Ian Billinghurst.
Good morning, everybody, and good morning, Rob.
Good morning. How are you?
Really well, thank you. Had my coffee, almost awake.
Yes, good. I have had my last cup of coffee of the day because you're in the morning, I'm in the late afternoon, or mid-afternoon.
Correct. Yep.
Very good. Well, today we're excited because we had Dr. Freeman on, gosh, it's a couple months ago with Dr. Patton. That show is on our YouTube channel. And we asked her to come back and talk about a completely different topic that we're all really passionate about. She's our first, we'll celebrate this. She's our first reoccurring guest. I think that means we've been at it for a while.
I think so.
Enough time anyway. So
has she entered the studio, Rob?
Yes. And so let me give a proper introduction. So Dr. Kim Freeman is an amazing holistic veterinarian in Santa Fe, New Mexico. She is an incredible Chinese herbalist and acupuncturist. She has a lot of tools in her tool belt. And she just added regenerative farmer to her title. So welcome, Dr. Kim Freeman.
Hello.
Hi, Kim. It's lovely to see you again.
Nice to see you. Very nice.
How was it in our green room, being in our backstage in our green room?
It's great. It's you have a lot of anticipation though. Like I could go at any moment. Yeah.
I know, right. What we want to do, we want to build up the excitement for you and your nerves.
Right.
Yes.
It's like holding a smile for the camera where you're just smiling and smiling and then it's
right.
really bad.
Well, I'll make this really easy beginning. We're going to start off with the second video that you sent us of your dog, Grace. And
okay.
It's a follow-up video. So the first part is on our YouTube channel. Go check it out there if you'd like, where we have a lot of testimonials and reviews from pet owners. But this is like a follow-up to Grace, and then we'll talk about it. So let's play this really super quick.
Rob,
get ready.
Yeah. Just a quick question. I'm just trying to remember. Grace was very finicky eater. Is that the story? I'm just trying to remember.
Yeah,
yes.
She started out very, very sick dog as a puppy. And when she was gifted to me, and she has spent, well, she's 7 now. So let's say a full 6 years in a gut health struggle. It's always been an upward climb, but yeah, she's definitely, a classic case of starting off on the wrong foot.
You'll remember her eyes for sure. So
yes.
She has a bad haircut, though. I'm sorry. She has a very bad haircut right now.
That's okay. Here's Grace with her bad haircut.
Good morning. You ready for breakfast? This is a dog that didn't used to sit and wait for breakfast. Still willing to have Gussie's gut dry. And she's excited about her Shine pet food with Gussie's gut on it. This is her excited face. Okay, here you go. Breakfast time used to be me following her around with the food bowl.
That's hysterical. So you know she's excited because of her ears? How do you know?
Yeah, exactly. She's very demure. She is. Actually, when she's outside, she's insane. She's, a totally different dog, but yeah, she's very well behaved. very serious about things.
I do remember those eyes. They're gorgeous.
Right.
Yeah, the up look is amazing. So
Yeah.
what do you mean you would have to follow her around to make her eat or something? Or
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's been she and her sister who were, they're from a shelter, but they were turned into a shelter in Florida because they were sick all the time. So the people bought them from a backyard breeder, basically. And the two puppies were in that home for about 4 months before they were turned in because they were too expensive, because they were sick constantly. And when she and her sister, my sister and myself, took the two dogs, they were sick for months and months. And this is two veterinarians that, couldn't really get a handle on it. And my sister realized that the dogs were allergic to chicken, or, I should say sensitive to chicken. And it's pretty hard to be allergic to something when you're that young. So she did have better success at least getting control of it before I did, because I didn't realize that I was cooking her food with chicken in it. And things got better, quite a bit once we realized that. But she's been a constant struggle. Lots of testing, lots of animal biome testing, and it's been an uphill climb for sure, and getting better and better. And eating fresh food has made a huge difference for her. But there's at least 50% of the time in the past she would refuse to eat anything at all, except if it was hand fed to her and following her around. And then she would get sicker, so it was a real struggle for a long time. I've never, in being a veterinarian and I helped run a rescue organization. I've had hundreds of animals in my care and never had to do that. So it's obviously
So actually, she's been one of your best teachers. Would that be correct, Kim?
Yeah. My first teacher was a Weimaraner. Same thing came to me. So for the 14 years I had that Weimaraner, he ate home cooked food. That was way before, really, really a long, long time ago, before anybody really talked about that. And that was the only thing he could eat. And it was, highly successful in his case. So same situation, but trying all the things I know have helped her, but not really pushed her that final mile. So she's doing very well. She does now eat both meals without a big struggle. We live next to a river, so she does like to indulge in really disgusting river water. So there's times when she's not herself, but it's far less than it was. Yeah.
Wow,
and she
great.
really likes the taste of Gussie's gut. She's, that's being a topper has also made a big difference. And then finally getting her on Shine 100%, without me having to cook separately or, make fancy things happen for her. She's doing really well. Yeah.
Kim, I'm not familiar with Shine. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. The Shine Pet Foods is in Santa Fe, and the original name was Marty's Meals. So you can, if you Google it, you can pull up both. The name has changed recently, and but nothing else has. The quality is all 100% the same. So I consult for Shine. Sandy Bosman is the owner, and they've been operating for almost 10 years in Santa Fe, and having beautiful success. So making fresh food, either raw or gently cooked food. The ingredients are amazing. Many locally sourced ingredients. And then also the key ingredient here in this conversation anyway is that our food is certified organic. That's really hard to come by, extremely difficult. And also extremely difficult to accomplish. So I have some details on how that happens. To get certified organic food for pets is, challenging, to say the least.
Yeah.
But we are now you're having success with Gussie's gut. That's just been an addition that has actually made a difference. Is that correct?
I do. I do think having a topper that she loves the taste of and then seems to have really just kind of brought everything together. I do have her and have had her on a program for quite a while where she gets folate in her food, added folate, which you should produce in your gut at certain levels, and if you're sick, if you have inflammatory bowel disease or sick gut in some ways or another, you either might have too little, too much, you might have too little B12, and there's testing for all that. And so she has, had that been on that program for a while. It sort of maintained her, and at this point, she's almost able to come off the folate, and that hasn't been the case. We've had to keep her. I say we because I always treat my own dog. My colleagues and I, I've had to keep her on folate for. It's been at least 6 months, so she's hopefully at this point getting enough prebiotics, which she gets in her food, but I do think it's been a huge addition, really.
Well, that sounds to me like you're telling me that her microflora, her microbiome has improved to the point that she is in producing her own folate.
I hope so. And I hope so for lots of my patients. I mean, Rob and I were talking about how many patients I see. It's like, I would say 50% of the cases I see of either just completely GI situation issues or related things that I believe are related to GI, like allergies, severe allergies, especially these really young patients with severe allergies. And they are all related to, they have the same complaints. They don't think of to tell you unless you ask, but they'll say, oh yeah, they have a very sensitive stomach, or they have a lot of gas, or they have, poor appetite. And I'd love to tie all of that together. And also, for finicky eaters, like having experienced it with my own dog for the first time in 100 dogs, it's a nightmare, really, to have an animal that doesn't feel good enough to eat,
Absolutely.
So
these patients with gut issues, what are they eating predominantly, Kim?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's predominantly commercial food, although there are plenty of what I think, and Rob and I had this conversation in the past, yesterday, day before yesterday, about patients that are so young they shouldn't have this problem at their age, and that I think it's epigenetics. I think it's not just genetics, that's such a hardline approach to health, that you have either bad genetics or good genetics, and I don't really believe that, but you have lines of animals that eat poorly and live poorly or have certain exposures to things that aren't good for them, and then they end up coming out with deficiencies, and either just Western medicine deficiencies, or the way I look at things a lot is an Eastern medicine deficiency as well, and then you spend a lot of your time maintaining them or trying to bring them back to health, and maintaining that, so it's interesting, that's for sure. I'm convinced of it with Grace, because she can't at 6 months be severely sensitive to chicken. You don't have enough time in your life to be allergic to chicken per se. So
I look at this as generations of dogs being fed badly, and a genome that's trying to cope with this, and because the genome just isn't designed to cope with this particular style of feeding, and so in its attempt to cope, we actually generate these problems. That's a very simplistic way, but it's one way that I look at it, as an epigenetic effect over many generations.
Yeah,
So
I do agree. I mean, even from just somewhat unrelated, but a good example of, cats that have a specific stresses when they're pregnant. end up having whole litters of kittens that have cystitis, and that's a well-known Western medicine finding. So those, cats who can explain this idiopathic cystitis it's not genetic. It's really something that they acquired in utero, and I believe this cannot be any exception if you eat poorly or, and I think it's translatable to humans as well. So it's
Absolutely.
not like you don't sincerely have bad genetics, which always seems like that's final. I have bad genetics. I can't fight against that, but I disagree. I think that you just have a gene deficiency or something slightly less than a gene deficiency, which in Chinese medicine is like you're just born with the few things missing, but you can supplement and you can, baby that that deficiency and build yourself back up again. So.
And
I have
Kim,
some very strong thoughts on those kittens, but that's not our topic today.
and Kim, how do you define epigenetics for people watching?
Well, I mean, I should have probably gone and gotten the official definition, but I think that it is that there's things that affect the expression of genes, and so either in previous generations or in utero, the factors that affect the expression of those genes are altered in some way, and I mean, it's a pretty significant alteration to show up in an entire litter, let's say, of puppies. So epigenetics are, a huge field of study in humans to, again, probably get away from that conversation of it just being like your genetics, like you're just born with this sort of set of cards, but you might be born with, a set of cards that's got some folds in the corners, and they are, they need some work to get them unfolded. And so it's not as hardcore, it's not as severe as this idea of genes being wrong. Like genetic problems are usually pretty severe, and epigenetics can be any myriad of conditions that I think that we're all susceptible to. And then we see big epidemics of these diseases, but we're not, we're not able to really approach them in because we can't understand them, essentially.
Right. I've read for a while now, things like, I'm thinking of many different types of articles, the articles that talk about, we are what we eat and what those animals eat. So I'm thinking of that as an example. I'm also thinking of, they're starting to research how even mental trauma is passed on to kids. They're human children, and they're thinking animals. It's harder to interview and ask animals, but that also.
Well, the cat example is quite fitting for that.
Well,
that's a well-known.
That's exactly what made me think of it. What you just said. So, and I didn't know about that study or that I would imagine it's a paper somewhere. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think long-term nutritional deficiencies play a big part in that, and then that brings up the whole conversation of the nutritional quality of your food. Everyone, across the world, the globe, and then what we're doing to food too, which has been happening for quite a long time. And that's this idea of whether it's organic or not. And that's like a conversation that most people just say, well, you want to eat organic food. They don't totally know why you want to eat organic food. And then there's a long list of reasons why you do. And then more importantly, why we want to keep organic actually organic, So there's a slew of rules surrounding organic foods, and we want to keep them pretty strict. So I don't,
let's Yeah, I'll get us into that. I love where you're taking the conversation. So let's talk about the fact. So if somebody says, "Hey, who cares if it's organic? Does it matter?" Let's go into that conversation. So let's go into, why would I pay $2.99 for celery that's organic versus $2.39 or $1.79? So let's talk about why it's important to look at organic.
Yeah, and people have two thoughts. One is that they want to know why it should matter, and there's the cost aspect of it. So people are trying to weigh the benefits, and they also want to know if it's real, if it's really organic, because there's quite a lot of a disinformation, campaign going on about what's really organic, and that makes people wonder if it really matters. So it does matter. The main gist of getting organic into your, into your life is to eliminate glyphosate. Like if that's all we did, that would be a huge jump in everyone's health. And I firmly believe epigenetics are involved here, that you not only have your parents eating that food affects their microbiome, the microbiome of your parents affects your microbiome. But then, of course, if you're eating it while you're pregnant or you're feeding it to your children, then you've got, like a compounded situation where that one compound, and there are many in that category, but that one compound is globally wiping out the microbiome of people and animals. And so at the very least, like the very bottom of the barrel reason to eat organic, buy organic, support really stringent organic standards is to eliminate that. And one day, we might wake up and it's banned. That would be the best situation.
So I'll take the role of just explaining a couple of things, since I'm the only one of three of us that doesn't have DVM after my name. So glyphosate is a chemical that is most commonly associated with a product in America called Roundup, and many other places around the world.
Including Australia, Rob.
Including Australia. And it is both used as it's there to kill pests, but it's an herbicide. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's to kill weeds, but it is also used as a desiccant to dry out products, and it crosses the blood-brain barrier, which is, you can Google that term. We won't get too deep into that science and down that rabbit hole, but that's not a good thing. It's water soluble, and it gets right into your bloodstream, and it actually affects the junctions of your gut. And so it really wreaks a lot of havoc on our systems and our dogs and cats and our animals. So did I do a good job of explaining that?
Yeah. It acts like an antibiotic as well. So it has that, just super simple explanation of truly acting like an antibiotic. And so directly affecting the microbiome and changing your gut flora. And then if it's consistently, the argument would be, well, it's in tiny amounts and it goes away. The argument has always been, well, you spray it and once it's dry, it's gone, but that's not true. It's very persistent in the environment, and it's also persistent in the food itself that you then take home. You could wash it all you want, but it's inside, and then it really builds up, so it's a cumulative exposure. And of course, there's many other things that farmers spray, and they're not doing it because they're bad people. It's very, very much established practices, pressures on farmers to have a crop at a certain time frame. Again, like you said, a desiccant, so you might spray it on a field of hay per se, and because you really need that hay to finish and dry and be cut at a really specific time frame. Unpredictable weather patterns, so the pressure is on, and it's been touted for so long to be so safe that nobody minds using it. But thankfully, we are starting to have many multi-million dollar lawsuits that are successful against companies who sell Roundup and sell it as safe, and then proven that it's not safe, and
Well,
so
yeah,
directly not safe to the people.
yeah. These are, aren't they? The lawsuits are about people getting non-Hodgkin's and lymphomas, and really
Yeah,
nasty
non-Hodgkin's
cancers.
type lymphoma. Specifically, high exposures cause you to get lymphoma. Like it's very reliably proven that that's what happens to you. And so then the question is, of course, does that happen over time?
Yeah.
Those are people who are spraying it and they're getting huge exposures, but what it wouldn't be surprising to me. And really, if you just look at dry dog food or processed dog food or commercial dog food, even if it's not dry, those are in those foods are very heavily concentrated application of things like Roundup, and that's because they're full of legumes, which are like most highly sprayed,
Lentils.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So any pea product and soybean and lentils and chickpeas and all that are really heavily sprayed. They have very specific growing patterns that Roundup is encouraged, and then they concentrate in that food. So if I feel like I can't get ahead in a gut case, and living with a gut case, really makes you think about all these things, then I take out those things. I take it out as much as I can, and having someone feed it all organic food is difficult, but we can think about the things that are more sprayed than others. You can think of, well, if you're going to do home preparation of food, then I'm going to take out all the things. I might not be able to make all the ingredients organic, but I could make the highly sprayed things organic. And there's lists of that, at least I used to be organic consumer association would have
Environmental
lists of,
working group. Yep.
yeah, exactly. Just lists of what's the most sprayed with various things. So you can at least try to reduce it at the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go to ewg.org and they'll list the clean 15 and the dirty dozen, and the clean 15 are the ones that are less heavily sprayed, a little bit more safe to eat, non-organic. But let's go back to where we were going down this path of why would you spend X versus X of organic versus non-organic. So another reason might be that the farmers, and I'm with you too. I mean, nobody's rarely blaming the farmers because there's a tremendous amount of subsidies and there's a lot of pressure, economic pressure on them to keep their farms. But let's just place the blame where it lies, which is the company making the product, the main product of glyphosate, which is Monsanto, which is owned by Bayer. That's the main company.
Yeah.
They sell the seeds to the crops that are Roundup ready seeds. And so without getting too deep again in the woods, that's not what we want for this podcast. We want to give you a bit of just a peek into what you should be able to look into on your own. But the Roundup ready seeds help the farmers spray the seeds and for that crop to still flourish. And so it's genetically modified organism that allows that crop to be sprayed. So this is all problematic when you think of gut health and glyphosate exposure. And when you purchase organic, you are not purchasing the product that was made with the Roundup Ready seed. You're actually purchasing something that came from a more original and a cleaner seed. Am I right, Kim?
Yep, you're right. And the quick trip into history is if you watch any sort of historical account of World War II, and you want to know who made all of the chemicals for that endeavor, not all, but a large portion of the chemicals was Monsanto. And so, when we were done with that effort and we all were at peace, then they looked for a place to utilize those chemicals. And it's across the board. It's not just Roundup, but it's other chemicals as well that if you look at the history of them, they are chemicals that were made for, killing people.
Yeah.
And defoliating entire jungles, and with no care to the outcome, unfortunately. So, but again, unfortunately, the company that makes them and then the consumer that buys them because of cost are, the two places that we have to figure out a solution for. It's not really placing blame, like you said. It's just a solution. Not everybody can afford it organic, but organic is what we did before, not organic. And there's no reason why it should be more expensive, except to say that we've just elevated our population and our pest pressure to a point where we have to wrestle it back down. And then that's where things like regenerative farming come into play, and just plain old soil health. Like it doesn't have to be fancy, and it doesn't have to have a name, and doesn't have to have, the organic movement has even developed the Real Organic Project. That's a really amazing podcast if you like podcasts about that sort of thing. And it's not really about farming, it's about what's happened over the years and evolved or sort of devolved, really. And the hope for the future, which is really why I listen to it, because it's hard to not get depressed, about these things. So we can look for the way to kind of tie it all back in together. And what a very recent finding is that the best and quickest way out of our global warming, carbon emitting problem that we have as a whole community on this globe is through soil health. And that sounds complicated, but it's actually not. There's just 5 principles, and anyone can do it. You can do it in your backyard, and it's all about protecting the soil, which then protects the bees, which is a very popular thing to do right now. So you can look at the soil health principles, and then taking that tiny jump to gut health isn't far. It's a very short jump, and it's where we get our microbiome, really.
Yeah, I bet you're a big fan of the documentary Kiss the Ground.
Yeah,
right?
that's a good one. Yeah, it's also really comprehensive, so it makes sense to people, and you don't have to, read 10 books about it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Can I jump in for a second, Rob?
Yeah, of course.
I'm listening to the talk, and I'm thinking dry food full of grains. We have to buy a cheap source of grain. The one we're going to buy, of course, will come from a source that's been most cheaply made, and that'll be with something that's been sprayed with Roundup and then gone to market, because producing grain organically is expensive. But this surely is another reason to feed real food to a carnivore like a dog and a cat, which is animal-based. And then you think, okay, animal-based. What about the animals and glyphosate? Well, if you take a cow, some beef that's been raised in a feedlot, what was it fed? It was fed grain. How did that grain arrive there? Certainly probably wasn't organic. It was probably sprayed with glyphosate. So we need grass-fed animals, and this brings us back to organic or naturally raised livestock anyway, that hasn't been raised on these grains that have been sprayed with glyphosate. So grass-fed cattle, and this is going to take us a long way towards, if we have a raw diet based on what animals were designed to eat, our companion animals, then we're going to eliminate that glyphosate and do a whole lot of other things besides. So this takes me right back to where I'm sitting at, getting them to a biologically appropriate raw food diet and eliminate so many of these problems. And let me make one other comment, that glyphosate doesn't just affect the microbiome. The reason glyphosate was so attractive was because it was thought that it only affected biochemical pathways within a plant. But we now know that it affects all sorts of pathways within animals. And one of the most important things that affects it, and we know the blood-brain barrier, it makes that permeable, it makes the gut permeable, but it gets into our mitochondria, and our mitochondria are the powerhouses of our cells, and the mitochondria are highly implicated in cancer. And of course, I've written a whole book on that, but they damages the membrane of the mitochondria where energy is produced. And this is the prime, it is now believed by people like Seyfried and myself and many others, this is where cancer starts, in damage to the mitochondria. And glyphosate is right in there doing it. So I just thought I'd throw that in at this point.
And I'll just give one little asterisk to what you said. I think you're spot on with the animals, what the animals that your dog eats. So what they eat matters.
That's right.
And I would just say that it's unlikely to have glyphosate in a cow, let's say, if it is certified organic. So again, whenever you see certified organic, we're going to get into one exception that I think should be discussed. But organic fed animals are certified organic, or they're not certified at all. So, but grass fed is the next level above that, and certainly regenerative farmed grass fed animals are currently the pinnacle of what we can eat, as far as beef and bison and lamb and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's at least from Shine's perspective, very difficult to get organic certified, and then to keep your certification. I have my little list here from the things that we have to explain what we have to do. It's very expensive. It's time consuming. So it actually requires a person who's employed at that company to do all the bookkeeping and record keeping and keep track of all of the certifications that are needed. Keep of those certifications is pretty constant. And then it starts with, you have to show where all your food items come from. So each and every ingredient has to have its own certification, and then that's sort of traceable. Basically, you have to show what the food touches, how it's packaged, how it's stored. So there's practices, not just the food itself, but the practices are inspected and evaluated. And then even the kitchen is inspected. Labeling is also really a big, you can't just label it however you'd like and make claims that aren't true. So it's really intense, and you want it to be that way, although you want it to, to be easier on the good guys, the people who are actually trying to do good work and have a really high quality product. But that's the assurances, and they've been degraded, of course, over time. Again, that Real Organic project kind of delves into that, as far as what changes have happened at the federal level to make it so that you maybe don't completely trust organic. And what you're really looking for, like I agree with you, Rob, is what, and Ian, it's a full circle kind of view of what you're really looking for, at the very least, are free range animals who eat a natural diet. And
Yep.
So unfortunately, you can certify organic CAFOs, and CAFOs are confinement animal operations. And having been before vet school, I was an animal science major. Did 4 years of animal science, and this is a long time ago. So this is like, um, but seriously, in the 90s, I did my animal science degree, and we visited farms. And in my mind, growing up in the city, I thought, well, I'm going to a farm to visit these farms, and I'm going to, see this wonderful place. And I would say that 50% of the places we visited in our degree teachings were CAFOs. And at the time, that was that's normal. That's like, um, you know, this is what a farm is. And unfortunately, now it's even worse that huge percentage of people's food come from these confinement animal operations. And of course, now we're fighting to get it back. And people do know about them, and they want to do it differently. And especially, I think COVID made a big difference for people to sort of inspect, hey, where did this food item come from and what's in it? And seeing how sick people get in the packing houses and just that whole process. And then the question about, is that one of the reasons why we have some of these big disease transfers, is because we're packing all these animals together in super unhealthy conditions. Like you said, Ian, eating unhealthy food. Cattle aren't supposed to eat grain. They are ruminants. They eat grasses. They eat long, fibrous, foods, and not short fiber foods or starchy foods, and they can
And
become
what a
ill.
terrible life those animals have. That's
Terrible
something
life. Yeah.
It's
So
horrible.
yeah,
I can't imagine it for yourself. It just
yeah.
So
beggars belief.
let's get into, because we have a bit of time left, about another 10 minutes. But I want to talk about soil health, and I definitely want to get into that and really just end on the organic standards. There's lots of places to go. We've given you a few places. There's another great place, very local to me in Colorado. It's savory.global. It's a Savory Institute. There are lots of places from there that they certify quite a bit of regenerative farmed, and you'll be better off for having visited that website. I promise you that. And Alan Savory, who founded it's one of the leaders and North Stars of this movement. But that and the Kiss the Ground movie that we've talked about on Netflix, they talk about soil health, and it's the soil that delivers all of our nutrients to us. So let's just real quickly, let's just do a quick summary for people if they don't understand why that's so, soil health and the quality of soil, why that's so important to our health.
Can I say 2 words?
Yes.
Soil microbiome.
Right.
Bingo.
Right.
Because there is a massive microbiome, in our soil, and it's delivered, all those benefits go right into the plants. Is that right?
2 other words.
Yeah.
Or 3. Dogs eat, that's 4 words. Dogs eat healthy soil.
They sure do.
Right.
They sure do. They sure do.
Yeah, and so do people. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think it's really important for us to pay attention to the types of farming that's done, whether it is, you can get really super nerdy on this stuff, and we don't want anybody to feel overwhelmed or, just take a small bite, no pun intended,
right,
on the topic and let it run over you. Sign up for some newsletters, see if you like them, listen to these podcasts, go on Netflix, watch Kiss the Ground. That's a great place to start. And then make choices on who's doing what you want to support, and do that for yourself and do it for your animal, because it applies to us both. I in particular, for me, I buy most of my food from Shine. We have a store here locally. Gus eats mostly that product. I can trust it. It's amazing. It's ground up. It's beautifully combined for me, organ meat and muscle meat and bone. And then I supplement it with other grass-fed products that I can find sometimes. I usually do that based on what's on sale and just give him a nice variety. So anyway, let's talk about soil versus hydroponic.
Yeah.
Rob, healthy soil is fertilized by poo from animals that didn't eat non-organic food.
Yep.
Okay. Just a small, it's very simple.
It is.
You have to keep it simple.
It is simple. Yes. So you want to do a quick 2 minutes, Kim, on hydroponic?
Sure. I mean, it might not even take 2 minutes. You know, hydroponic is a feat of engineering and science, and there's no doubt about that. And there's a burgeoning population, and there are reasons to have, you know, places that are set up like hydroponic and to feed lots and lots of people. But it is fertilizer based, it's synthetic fertilizer based, it's plastic based. It is not at all something that should ever be certified organic, and it was heavily fought against. And the fight was lost because of politics and because of money. And so hydroponic is somehow certifiable at this point, and it's overwhelmed the market with cheap fruits, especially like, you know, strawberries and blueberries and things that you just can, it's difficult to find them otherwise now because they're very inexpensive. So it'll be a major endeavor to return to, you know, the time before hydroponic. What could replace hydroponic? I have hope for in the future are vertical gardens, urban and vertical gardens. You know, that same, yeah, soil based, but that same engineering, amazing ingenuity, you know, feat of humankind could redirect its focus on remembering that things come out of the soil, and if they don't, we'll become ill again for a different reason. You know, essentially it's mountains of plastic every time they're done with that you know, crop, then they throw away mountains of plastic and start over, and it again is not a healthy future whatsoever. There are aquaponics, you know, there's a different approach in aquaponics, and though it involves a lot of plastic, it's reusable, and it involves fish, and it might be a little bit more of a system like that could be, you know, construed as sustainable in the future. But we have to work on that because there's no there is a zero reason to be able to call that organic. And if you notice the taste, like if you get hydroponic strawberries, they just taste like nothing, you know. And they are, I mean, they're quite engineered to that is a huge push in the hydroponic movement, is to make things taste really amazing, but they still just taste like hydroponic strawberries.
Yeah. And you know, I can just tell you that I see it all the time in the store, very popular health food stores. I see hydroponically grown sprouts and all of this sort of stuff. They use artificial nutrients that get put into the water supply to grow these. And I agree. The feat it's an incredible feat of engineering, and you know what we're able to do is amazing. It's just that we don't learn about how bad it is for us sometimes for 10 to 30 years.
Right.
And
but our bodies, Rob, are telling us, and Kim just said it, we are engineered by evolution to decide with our taste what is good and what is not so good. And boy,
Yes.
can we taste the difference between something that's hydroponically grown, like strawberries, and something that's actually been grown in soil with real organic fertilizer. And we don't yet know exactly why that is so, but it sure is so. And so it's very simple. The more we can return to those original conditions under which something was grown, the healthier we're going to be, because the healthier those plants are going to be.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Very much agreed. So, I don't want to be the proverbial frog in the pot that the temperature gets raised up slowly, and I don't realize that cancer is brewing, or another degenerative disease because of I'm eating nutrient deficient, or food that's largely devoid of nutrients because it wasn't grown in soil. I want to eat food that was grown in soil and in a healthy farm where the crops were rotated. And so that's where I'm at. I just don't want to be part of the experiment. If that's a choice people want to make for themselves, I welcome it. Everybody gets to decide what they buy and what they eat. But I don't want to be part of that experiment. I choose to opt out of that. And so I hope that this shines a light on some of those choices that you can make in the market.
Yeah, and it is somewhat related to equity, in a sense that, or it's very related to equity, I should say, in the sense that we have these big companies have, just by the nature of how they do business, made it so that that between the disinformation and the cost of things, it's made it so that organic is for the elite, and really it's the complete opposite, that is true in other countries and should be true again here. And so it's encouraging that the conversation about equity is so much on the forefront right now, because it also involves something we do every day. 2-3 times a day I eat, and I want to be able to have that be a fair process. And it would be nice if that that were true. I think that there are grassroots movements, and like the Savory Institute, Alan Savory is amazing. And I just listened to a podcast from him recently on the Real Organic Project that really brought home just what his life goals are, and he says he's in his twilight time, of course, but his accomplishments are very real. Like, they can be and have been brought on board by government agencies to not just save the world, but to really, like, it's real. Like, if governments are actually recognizing that if they don't listen, we're all in trouble. And it's everybody from the rich to the poor.
One of the things I'm coming back to thinking about is you mentioned that hydroponic was created to address a global supply. We hear all the billions of people in the world, and how we have to feed all of them. Don't be fooled. We have plenty of land and plenty of resources to be able to appropriately farm, and in the old way and in the healthier way, to be able to farm and supply everybody for in the planet. It would take a massive movement to change the farms to regenerative. And again, you can go to Kiss the Ground on Netflix. You'll get very entertainingly educated on that. I believe Woody Harrelson narrates the movie, but it is not accurate to say that the only way we can feed the world is through some of these methods that are proprietary, and it's it just isn't. And not only that, I think you also alluded, Kim, to the fact that the thing that can feed us is also the thing that can draw down the all the I'm losing
Carbon.
the carbon.
Yeah.
Thank you. The carbon in our atmosphere. Thank you so much. And you'll
Well,
see that in that video.
Yeah, exactly, and it's quite obvious that's been a huge contributor. So it's not just like the solution, but it's the practices that are happening now, though they're being touted as feeding the millions and billions of people. They are 100% actually doing the opposite and proven. Climate scientists are not only saying that we have some major issues with carbon, but we also have 20 to 30 harvests left with the amount of viable topsoil that we have. And the 5 simple principles of soil health are able to build back carbon in the soil way faster than ever believed. And so it's, again, you can listen to podcast after podcast, but John Kempf does a beautiful podcast on just the science of all of that and how quickly you can bring your, what's sort of normal for a carbon content of soil now is crazy low. Anywhere from 1.5 to 3% carbon in your soil, is 3% if you're lucky. And what it used to be was 8 to 9%, and people thought it would take 100 years to get back to that, but it is not true. The hopeful information to take home is that just by covering your soil, stopping tilling, don't dig as much as possible, and producing compost, essentially improving your soil health, can bring that back much, much faster. And even companies like Monsanto are participating in no-till. They still spray herbicides because of the convenience of it and the processes that they're stuck on, but they actually have, big, huge corporations have moved to reducing tillage. So a tiny little bit of hope. They're not doing it for the right reasons, but they're doing it because it's actually proven to be more productive. So more productive, more produce, more grains, more hay, even to feed livestock on those same fields, because we're doing different practices, old practices.
Well, I have so much that I'd like. I feel like you probably are the same. All 3 of us are. There's 100 thoughts going through our head about, oh my gosh, you should think about this. You should see this. You should. But those are good places we've given you to start. They're really amazingly detailed, but also not overwhelming. And when you start looking at regenerative farmed ranches and farms, you can see that it is actually the biome of the soil that is nourishing us and also really keeping our planet in balance. And so the tilling is what's destroying the biome of the soil. And we need the biome, folks. So I think that's a good place to end. I mean, just in full circle back to the biome, don't you think, Ian?
One other thing.
Yeah.
Support farmers markets.
Yeah.
Eat local, eat seasonal. Feed local, feed seasonal. Farmers markets are a good way for all of us to get in there and encourage local farms, because this stops transport. It stops all those issues of importing huge amounts of fertilizer to farms. Support the local farm, eat seasonal, eat local, support farmers markets.
Thank you. That's a very important point.
Start.
Yeah, I agree. Well, great. Kim, as our guest, I'll let you have the last word.
Oh, I don't know.
How about
I'm glad you said that.
How about you're trying to do a regenerative farm and your Instagram is Clean Fork Farm? How about that?
Thank you. Yes, a baby farm. We're a baby farm, but very much New Mexico soil stewards and really believe in it, and have met local farms that are doing all the same, like you said, Ian. That's the key. That's almost to me as important as organic, really. Even if you're not certified, it's very labor intensive to get certified and costly, but the practices are there, and people who live on their farm and own their own farm, they care about what's going on, and they make those decisions, you know, based on what's in their heart as much as possible. And so supporting a local farm is really the way to go about it. And it's also not hard. Each state has a healthy soil program now. So that's a government funded program, again, to bring back soil health. And so you don't have to be a farmer to be in support of that. You can sign up as part of the group, essentially, the people that believe in it. You can have a worm composting bin, or you can, anything, you know, that you're doing makes a difference for sure.
That's great. Well, Kim, this was wonderful. I hope we're going to have a third, another episode at some point. Thank you so much for being with us. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And everybody, you can subscribe right here to the channel if you liked what you heard today and you wanted to get notifications. Turn on your notifications and subscribe on YouTube. And do go to those websites that we mentioned and get yourself educated. It's going to be so much better for you and your dog. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.